Three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Mammano, your host, and we are here to help you, these entrepreneurial small business achievers, leaders, move forward. We want you to move forward. That's what we do. That's what Avanti means. It means move forward in Italian. And the way I help you, the Avanti family, is I cultivate and find the most incredible entrepreneurs that I can find, that I've known in the past and that I've met recently. A whole combination, the best business movers and shakers to help you move your business and your attitude forward. Today, I have on the show a great guest and an old friend. He's not old, but I've known him since 2006, I believe, right? So it's at 13 years. So Stephen Halasnik. I say that right? Halasnik.
Yes, correct.
Yes. Being Italian, like you said, I want to add an O or an A to the end, but especially you're from New Jersey, but I won't, But Stephen, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here.
I'm glad to be here.
So, Stephen, we want to learn more about your business and your journey. I mean, really, you're here today. You've got a great journey. You're a great entrepreneur. You're on your seventh company, and every time you start a new company, you take the wisdom and the ups and downs and the learning lessons, and I like to think, and I bet you agree, get even better, right? Even better. You're still, like everybody, we're still making mistakes, but this is your seventh company. Yeah. So quickly tell us about this seventh company. What do you do and how do you help entrepreneurs? And then I want to get into your journey.
Well, I don't want to take a lot of time because it could take up the whole podcast. So I have two main businesses right now. One's called Financing Solutions. And what Financing Solutions does, it provides lines of credit to small businesses and nonprofits. So, that's small businesses are anywhere between $400,000 in yearly sales to usually about $7 million. And we provide them up to $100,000 in a line of credit. And so, that's what Financing Solutions does. It's a very good business, and our clients really love what we do. It's really gratifying because over the course of 25 years, I dealt with banks on a consistent basis, and it was always a nightmare. It's nice to be able to deal with business owners who have typically not been able to work with banks, or they don't like dealing with banks. And so it's our own money. We're a private lender. We're loaning our own money, and that's what Financing Solutions does. And then I have another company called Elite Funeral Funding, and what it does is it buys life insurance policies for people when their loved ones have passed away, and they don't want to wait the 45 days to get the money. They want the money up front. So we advance the money to the family, and then we collect the money directly from the funeral home.
Interesting. So kind of a twist in the marketplace, right? I don't know. Kind of a niche, I would say, right?
Yeah, it actually has been a mature industry. We just happen to, like it when we studied different markets to kind of go, I have a business partner in both these businesses. So in the past, I hadn't had a business partner, but in these two, I do. And we were really studying this market. We liked it. And then we ended up finding somebody who had 25 years of experience to run it for us, who's a partner with us as well. And she's really good. So we provide the financing and the expertise on how to run a business, and she provided the expertise of the industry.
Excellent. So quickly, I'm sure there's a lot of Avanti listeners, small business owners, who may be looking for some money. We're all looking for money, right? And this will be in the show notes, but they would go to financingsolutionsnow.com. That's your website. Correct. And typically, what's kind of we call it the client avatar, right? What's kind of a person who's going to qualify to work with you?
So 650 or greater personal credit score, at least $400,000 or higher in revenue, and they can't have a lot of debt in relation to their revenue. So those would be the three criteria that we're going to look at. And it's pretty simple. And I mean, give you an example. We typically will have the line up and running within 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
And we will give you an offer letter after filling out a 2-minute application. we will give you an offer letter, and so you'll know what the line is like, excuse me. And so it's a very simple process as compared to what it's like dealing with a bank. It's non-collateralized, so there's no collateral requirement, and it's basically there's no personal guarantee. So if your business were to declare bankruptcy or something like that, we're not going after your home or anything like that.
Right. Very good. So it's really perfect for a small business entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Maybe is not qualified to work with, like you said, one of the bigger banks yet, or just wants to work with a more flexible, personal person like yourself. And they can also offer knowledge on growing the business too. I mean, you're putting content out there as well, to using your expertise as a serial entrepreneur for many years to help people grow their business to the next level. So you're offering more than just a bank, it seems like.
Yeah, and listen, banks are just not interested in working with you if you have less than $10 million in sales. There's just no two buts about it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have 100% collateral to back up your loan, you might as well forget working with banks. People think you go to a bank and you develop this relationship with them, and all of a sudden they're going to give you money. They don't care about the relationship. What they care about is, do you have enough money to back up the loan if you default?
Right.
And if you don't have that, $300,000 in equity in your house, and you're applying for a $100,000 line of credit, they're not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
So it's very clean cut. And then there's all these other things. So working with banks has gotten really, really hard ever since the recession.
Yeah. So, so you wrote an article as you were preparing for the Avanti Entrepreneur podcast. You wrote an article it's titled "What Happens When a Serial Entrepreneur Starts His Seventh Company," right?
Yes.
And I'm going to have a link to that in the show notes if anybody wants to read it. I read it and I thought it was, being a serial entrepreneur myself. We're kindred spirits, you and me. Love this article, and I want to talk about it. But I just remembered I also want to tell the Avanti family how we met. So I alluded to the fact that we met in 2006 because we were both EO members, Entrepreneurs Organization members, and we signed up for what was called at the time Birthing of Giants, right? And then the year that our program began, they actually changed the name to the Entrepreneurial Masters Program, right? I think we were the first class. We had Cameron Harold and David Hauser. We had great people in our class, right? A lot more. And for those of you that don't know what this program is, like I said, it's called EMP, Entrepreneurial Masters Program. It's a program at MIT. People say, "Oh, you got your master's at MIT." And as much as I would like to spin that and say yes, in all honesty, no, I don't have my master's at MIT. It's a master's certificate program, I guess they call it, right?
So I want to be clear. Program.
What's that?
It's a 3-year program.
3-year program. We were there for 5 or 6 days a year for 3 years. Early to late, just learning. Well, they say we're drinking from the fire hose of entrepreneurial wisdom.
Yeah,
I had incredible people there, like George Native, founder of Boston Chicken, Boston Market now.
Yeah.
And then just incredible authors and professors and entrepreneurs, and it was super, super fantastic. So that's how we met. You had the privilege of sitting next to me, so I'm sure you're just, very grateful for that, right?
Well, you're unique, definitely.
Thank you. I hear that a lot. I think that's a compliment. And we both were doing different businesses back then. I had a magazine for high school students called Next Step, and I believe you were in a nursing staffing business, correct?
Yeah, I had 2 companies. I had a technology. It was a staffing company that was placing technology consultant. I also had another business that was placing travel nurses, which are registered nurses at hospitals. So they were temporary staffing. They were great businesses. The one thing I want to mention, about the businesses, because you hear 7 businesses, you don't know the size. And the fact is all those businesses were between $5 and $20 million. So they're not small. They're not small businesses. And you got to be careful nowadays who you listen to or you read about. You have people writing articles or going on to podcasts, and it's like, okay, well, what size was your firm? Okay, and these 7 companies were all successful in that they produced very good profits. And that was important. So that's I've had some good success.
Sure. So my first question is, and I know the answer, but I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, like, so why didn't you just stick with them? Right? They're good companies, good profits. Why did you sell them or whatever you did?
I think it's the best question that somebody who's on the ball should ask. Right? Really, I do. Okay. So I don't want to, again, I could talk this whole show about those businesses. So some of them ran its course, like expertseeker.com was for 15 years, and it caught this great wave in the United States of needing technology consultants. And then a lot of that went away to India. And so it caught this incredible wave. And a lot of my businesses were like that. Healthcare Seeker made the Inc. 500 fastest growing company in the United States, got to 7 million. And that was one of my favorite companies because I had built such a great team. And then when the recession hit, I was shocked because I picked that business to be recession proof. And I found that it wasn't recession proof. So in 2008, the industry that we were in went from $13 billion to $7 billion due to the Great Recession. And we tried to ride it out, but it was still going. I ended up selling it for a small amount of money, and then I moved on after that to Financing Solutions. But and then I still have 4 businesses that are very actively doing well. So 3 other businesses closed down. And so that I haven't had a big payday yet. I haven't gone public. I've just built wealth, which has been good, and I've been able to stay self-employed, which is a goal.
Well, because you're unemployable at this point, right?
I know everybody says that, but I don't believe it. I started 8 years working for Xerox, and I was one of the top sales reps in the country. So if you can sell, you could always find a job. But that's a matter of if you want to put up with corporate politics or not.
Well, that's my point is, you dealing with a boss, I think that makes you unemployable.
I guess you know me.
Yeah, you're going to say, what? Who are you telling me what to do, right?
The thing about having 7 businesses is anybody who tells you they have done that it's not an ego thing. It's just I'm very, very adaptable to change.
Yep.
I'm very adaptable. So.
Now, these other businesses that you still have but not running, what do you? So you're kind of the guy that births the business, gets it to a certain level, and have you found people to run the day-to-day and take it to the next level, and you're still
Financing Solutions, I'm very actively involved.
What about the other, but you said you have like 3 or 4 other companies that are.
So Elite Funeral Funding, I have somebody running it. Credential Agent, which is software that stores employee credentials. It's I don't even have to have any employees. It's software based. It's on cloud software, SaaS software. So that kind of runs on its own, and I don't have to really do anything. And then I own some commercial real estate, and I'm active, but that's not that big a deal.
Yeah. My kids, like, sometimes at the dinner table, they'll say, Daddy, like my friends ask me what you do, and like, what do you do? It's like, my dad worked at Kodak, right? You talk about Xerox,
better
Rochester company. It was very simple. My dad worked at Kodak. Oh, okay. And oftentimes as an entrepreneur, it's tough for people to really kind of understand what you do, right?
I know my whole family doesn't really kind of get it. My mom and what do you do again? And, they don't really, they have a hard time understanding it.
Just keep on bringing home the money, right?
Yeah. I guess, they see it. I'm happy, and I guess that's good enough.
Yeah. That's awesome. You look happy. Yeah. So I want to talk about your article, because this is the best preparation I think a guest has ever done for my podcast. So thank you. You actually wrote an article when you were thinking about what we're going to talk about on the Avanti podcast. So thank you for that. So it's titled, again, What Happens When a Serial Entrepreneur Starts His Seventh Company. And, what I want to do is quickly go through these. So you talk about the first one is lead generation is the key to your business success. Tell us about that, please.
So I'm a huge evangelist of this. I think, give you an idea. I started writing a lot of articles, and the first 10 articles I wrote, the first 7 were about lead generation. And every time I look at maybe potentially starting a company, another one, or looking at my existing business, everything starts from lead generation. And what I mean by that is, what is it going to cost you to acquire a client? And what's your lead generation strategy? What are you going to do? How much is it going to cost? How much you're going to have to spend? How are you going to get your clients from that? It is the number one thing that I work on 80% of my day. Is I'm like, okay, what's our marketing? What's working? What's not working? I mean, with Financing Solutions, an example, I have marketing programs that cost as much as $12,000 for us to acquire a client. And I have other ones that cost us $1,500 to acquire a client. So, you're constantly looking at this. You're saying, okay, I'm not going to spend $12,000 anymore. And how can I spend more of the $1,500 ones on this? So, every single business that I've been involved, number one is the lead generation is the most important thing that you should be looking at. And I'll tell you where it emanated from. About 20 years ago, I might be exaggerating, but 20 years ago, I had to bring on, I was hiring a lot of people, and we were really struggling hiring the right type of people because it was really hard. And when I hired somebody who did great, they tended to be prima donnas and really difficult people, but they were revenue producers. These were salespeople. And I didn't want to be tied to them anymore. And so what I learned was, if I were able to control the leads that were coming into the company, one, I didn't have to get as good a salesperson. And number two, the salespeople that I have were happier because I was producing the leads. And so I learned that early on that, if your company is able to control and manage and understand the lead generation process, that is going to be a very successful company.
So that's a big focus for you. Like, you get your own leads, right? You're kind of like your company specific leads.
Yep. And what do we mean by that? SEO, search engine optimization, SEM, search engine marketing, paid for searches, direct mail. Direct mail still a great source. Yeah. Advertising in magazines, PR, email campaigns, client referrals, just break down the list. You just keep at it, and you just keep working on the different. And again, 80% of my time is like, okay, how did we measure this? And what was the success rate? And how much money do we make off these clients? And all that analysis.
Yeah, no, good for you. No, you're right. I mean, in fact, I opened up my mail before I started the podcast, and you're in a very competitive space, right? Like I actually threw out 2 offers of people, wanting to give me money, right, for my small business, right? They're out there like crazy. I get emails. I get, what do they call that thing when the ads follow you, right? Because you went on a website.
Yes, display advertising.
All that stuff. Yeah, retargeting, right, and a lot of mail, right? So you're in a very, very, very competitive space, right? So
it is. We are a little bit unique in that we're providing a line of credit, and that's a little bit different than most of the people you're looking at. Yeah. Not a lot of companies doing that. What they're providing is cash advances, which means fixed amount of money, and you have to pay back a fixed amount of money. Right. So it's very expensive.
Yeah, excellent. So we'll move on here. Number 2 you had in your article is sales, profits, take-home pay, and net worth. Tell us quickly about that.
So I'm going to articulate it in a weird way. Sales does not equal profits, does not equal take-home pay, does not equal net worth. And when you're a young entrepreneur, the thing that you tend to gravitate toward is my sales. And then someone says, you finally get smart after a couple of years and you start migrating to net profit. What is my company making? What is it making? How much is my net profit, right? So then the next thing that happens is, how do I get the money out of the business? How do I get monies to, get out of the business because it's risky? We all know that small businesses, almost all the money you're making in the business is typically back in the business in your accounts receivable. If you talk about a B2B business or a business to government type of business, right? The next one is the one that I kind of came to a realization, maybe 15 years. I'm a slow learner. And that is, it's all about net worth. Your business has to be growing your net worth. And if it's not growing your net worth, then you got to make some big changes. And what I mean by that is don't buy that expensive house. Don't buy those expensive cars, those expensive jewelry. Just because you're making $3 million a year in sales doesn't mean that translate into you improving your net worth. Because the reason I was able to start Financing Solutions, the reason I was able to start Elite, which requires a lot of money, okay, was because I didn't overspend and I made some smart investments in the house that I bought or the real estate, commercial real estate, and I acquired assets that were income producing. So, you had a guest on a couple of shows ago from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? She was a co-author, right?
Yeah.
And that was a great book. That's one of my favorite books, which I'm making my son read, by the way.
Yep.
And so it's all about net worth. If you are growing your net worth, you will have control over your future. Because wait till the recession comes, which is going to come, and you'll see how strong your business really is.
Right.
It'll allow you to weather the storm.
Secret with you. Have you done that?
Oops, sorry.
So that's a behavior you can.
Yeah. So no, thank you for that. Very good advice, because when the good times are good, sometimes we spend like sailors, right? And then when the poop hits the fan, and then it's like, you have to. Sometimes you have to sell assets at a reduced rate just to pay for the party, right? And no, good for you. So your next thing, number 3, was processes really matter. Tell us about that.
So when it was interesting when we started Elite Funeral Funding, we started that 3 years ago, going on 4, and we were like, okay, we're starting this business, and my business partner, who's a very experienced business person too, we were like, okay, we need to do this, and this. And it was all like, a lot of them was process based. It was like, okay, we need a process for accounting. We need a process for how we're going to fund it. We need a process to make sure we control any potential fraud of people stealing money. We need a process for our salespeople to follow. We need this, and this. So it was like within 3 months, we had a company that was already producing, we were doing about maybe $300,000 a month after the first 3 months, and it would have took me 2 years when I first started, maybe 3 years, to be able to know what processes I need to build, or that I needed to build processes. So they're really important. And the other thing I would say is like, for all your listeners, if you don't belong to the entrepreneur organization, you should just Google it. It's where, David and I both met, but, it's really, really important. But I got to meet a lot of entrepreneurs through that organizations. And what I noticed was the people who had processes and they were driven with processes, they were the entrepreneurs who typically lasted much longer than the ones that kind of went by the seat of their pants. And number 2 is the revenue of their companies typically grew faster. You cannot get past a $3 million, say, company if you don't have processes. Because what happens is that $3 million, you are no longer, the owner is no longer the person generating the revenue. Now you have a staff. And at that point, they need direction, they need to follow a process. So that's a simple one, but it's something I really believe in.
Yep, absolutely, and I agree with you. EO is wonderful, and there's a lot of companies that take a lot of these processes and create, kind of a third-party consultancy to help you do this if you're not good with processes on your own, which a lot of times entrepreneurs aren't, right? Yeah. So Vern Harnish has built the, Gazelles, which is coaches going in, implementing these, like a lot of the processes you need, the dashboard, et cetera. Gino Wickman with Traction, EOS, operating system, another fantastic one. Yeah. So they're out there. They cost money, but I don't think they cost. I think it's an investment because, to your point, it forces you to instill these processes that help you scale to that next level.
Yeah, and you can't this is not about creating a process and then putting it away. This is about creating a process, going over it with your staff and reviewing it on a monthly basis to say, are we doing this?
Right.
And so you've got to keep at it. You talking about, what is a process really doing? It's teaching your staff and making sure your staff is doing what you would have done.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important.
Yep. Because when you leave, even if you're going on an extended vacation, you don't want to have the company be beholden to the founder's personality, right? Yeah. It's got to be beholden to even with David or Stephen's gone, we know what to do because it's documented. There's processes and so in ideally they'll bring it to the next level because you're not there, right?
Yeah. So I'll give you a perfect example. So every year on our EO, we would go away on a retreat, right? And we go away for 5 days, 9 guys, and I would be on my retreat and I didn't answer my phone. My phone didn't ring. Nobody called me. Nobody texted me, and people, in my group were on the phone every 5 or 10 minutes. And, when I went away, if someone did call me because of a problem, I would be a little what happened, what process broke down.
Yeah.
Because that shouldn't happen. The company is not about me anymore. It's about the people that are working there. And so very rarely did I ever get a call. And I came back from vacations usually saying, I have a good company here. It's a sellable company.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the key component of this company.
Yeah, I love it. Very good sign of a leader. Good to great stuff for sure. And I'm sure Brian Scudamore from 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I had him on my podcast a while back, and he takes it a step further than you did. I love what you're doing. Empowering the team to figure it out based on processes and not rely on you. What he takes it a step further is he has his assistant change all of his passwords, right? So he can't get text, he can't get emails, right? And he instructs them the only way you call me is if literally there's a fire or some level of that type of emergency, right? Yes. And because you're tempted, even when you're on vacation retreat, you're tempted to check email, you're tempted to check Facebook, etc.
Yeah.
He has all of his past social media, everything changed.
Wow.
Only his assistant knows it.
Unique idea.
Yeah, Jim Rohn, wherever you are, be there. And it's hard to do with vacation these days, but I think that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah, I've always been that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So next up, number 4 here, good hiring just makes your life easier.
Yeah. So when I started Healthcare Seeker, I had this company, my second company before it was called Expert Seeker. And it was so hard to hire people for that job because you were hiring with recruiters and nobody comes out of college and nobody goes in their life and says, oh, I want to be a recruiter, right? It requires such a unique personality. So when I started Healthcare Seeker, I said, you know what? I want a great team. I want a great team. So what I tried to do is become a professional hirer. And really, I studied everything. I read everything I could about how to hire good. And it was amazing the difference between Healthcare Seeker and Expert Seeker. I loved the people who worked at Healthcare Seeker. It was such a great team. Whereas with Expert Seeker, and I'm not talking about on a personal level, I like all the people I work with, of course, but the caliber of people I hire with Expert Seeker, because I was inexperienced and I didn't pay attention as much to the hiring as I did with Healthcare Seeker. I used psychological profile tests. I went through 5 different interviews. I read a book that said, don't make a judgment about anybody in the first 15 minutes of the interview. I checked. I really went through resumes. I mean, really went through a lot of different things that I had read, which were best practices, having great job descriptions, measurable results that they were going to be held accountable for. And so what I learned was that with Healthcare Seeker, because I hired the right people, it just made my life so much easier. And honestly, not just hiring the right people, it's a small, usually company. Hire people you like, that you want to work with, that don't annoy you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're all in the office together. You better like who you work with. And that was a big change for me. You know, I hadn't thought that way before. So take hiring more seriously, because if you do, your life will be easier.
Yeah, I had a boss before I started my company in '95. I was in radio sales, and one of the owners of the station I worked for, he had a pretty simple rule for hiring salespeople. And after the interview, you know, assuming it went pretty well, his last criteria would be, do I want to have a beer with this guy?
Yeah.
Would I want to have a beer with this guy or woman, right? And if the answer is no, you know, it's like, I'm not going to hire you, you know, because this is likability. You know, do they talk too much? You know, is it a good flow of energy back and forth with this person, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, there's a lot to it. It's much more than one podcast is going to do. You can spend the whole thing on each one of these things, you know, but, you know, it also reflects me too. You know, I needed to become a better manager, which is one of the things we wrote here. There's a lot of things that I needed to do better too. But I mean, I get very committed to my people. So, I mean, that is, you know, they're my family. And yes, I keep it on a professional level, but, you know, if you do a good job for me, then I really, I take good care of you. I mean, I give you all the tools you need. You know, I run through the wall for my employees.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So moving on to the next one, finding 90 minutes a day to work on projects. I love that one. So tell me about that.
So this one was relatively recent, but I did look back and I do realize that I did do this, but maybe not on a daily basis. This is really hard, and it's so important that we all get tied up in our emails and, you know, people coming into our office and meetings and those type of things. You need to carve out 90 minutes a day to work on a project that is important for you, for the company, forever. Carve out that 90 minutes. The way that I typically do it is I carve it out on my calendar. So I say, and like after lunch, I'm going to spend these 90 minutes. I close my door and I work on that project. And I also keep it on my to-do list. So on my to-do list, I say, what's my 90-minute project right now that I'm going to work on? Now, maybe that project will take, you know, several days of 90 minutes. But I don't want to get caught up in answering the phone and going into my email and talking to people who I work with. And that's all I do all day long. I don't get anything accomplished. And those 90 minutes are the best 90 minutes, typically the one I feel the most fulfilled with when I go home.
Yeah.
When I wasn't a unique idea, by the way. It was from a book called Deep Work by a Harvard professor who talked that with all these distractions, you need to take out 90 minutes out of your day.
No, it's very true. And I've heard that before for some other training too. And I try to do that as well. And, you know, they did a survey, I think it was the Fortune 500 CEOs, of really kind of tracking their productivity of when they had focused work done. And even the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, it was literally like less than 30 minutes a day on average of actually getting like work done, right? Oh. And what I try to do, I try to take it a step further because I know myself. You know, I'm a typical ADD, like monkey brain entrepreneur. That the more the day goes on, the more distractions present themselves, right? And so I try to, as they say, eat the frog first, right? Just get it out of the way. If I can schedule that 90 minutes in the morning, preferably off-site, right? And just get stuff done, right?
Yeah. Like I go to a coffee shop right down the street a lot.
Yeah. Put your earbuds in and just pound away, right?
Yeah. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next on the list, number 6, entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. So I played baseball in college, and I've always been very competitive at sports. I do competitive rowing now. I was a very high competitive tennis player for 20 years. And so, one of the things that my coach told me, he just constantly emphasized it. He said that, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And so, what I really learned when he said that to me was that I was spending all this time training for the sport when, I should have taken that 3 hours and combined and condensed it to an hour, because I could have gotten, I was able to not get burnt out. So, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I am as energized, if you can't tell, and as energized today as I was 25 years ago. And it's because I realized that this is a marathon, and that I need to pace myself, and I can't have one good day and one bad day. So, I typically keep an 8-hour day. I don't work on the weekends. When I'm here, I'm really focused. I'm really intense. I really get a lot of work done. I'm very productive. But I also make sure, number one thing that comes first in my life, and believe it or not, it's not my family. The thing that comes number one in my life is my health. And if I'm not healthy, then I can't help my family, and I'll be a burden on my family. So number one is health. So an example would be if I have a really busy day and I can't go to work out at the end of the day in some fashion, I go first thing in the morning, because health is my number one priority.
Yeah.
Number two is family. Number three is work. Number four is friends. And number five is continuous learning. So what I'm trying to say is you only have a certain amount in your tank. Make sure that you're using that energy wisely, because there's going to become a time when you're going to go through a 3-month, a 12-month, a 2-year stretch where things are really difficult, and wait for a recession. That's when it's really difficult. And I've been through 2 of them, and again, I mentioned this before, you think your business is really good until you hit a recession. And then you realize, and then the key for this is that you have to survive the recession, because you'll come back on the backside much better, and your competition will drop off. Mm-hmm. So again, it's, entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a sprint.
I love it. And I love your commitment to fitness. I'm the same way. I have to work out every morning. Yep. I got to sweat every morning or my day's not right, That's why. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 54.
54. You look fantastic. I just turned 50. I say just, I think I'm in denial. It was in December, right? So, and I am in better shape, and I have more energy than I did when I was 25, right? I was 25. My diet consisted of beer and chicken wings for the most part, right? Yeah. And now, today for lunch, I was gonna, I had a choice of some sandwiches or a Greek salad with grilled chicken. I went for the salad, right? Yep. And those are very conscious choices, working out. And you're right. If you are not healthy, you can't be there for your family, for your friends, for your business, and everything else that's important to you. So
what are we doing this for? Yeah. If you're doing this because you're killing yourself at your job, and you're going home and you're miserable 24/7.
Yeah.
Hey, it's one's gonna catch up with you, and two is why.
What's the point? No, you look fantastic. You look vibrant and fantastic. So.
It's fun.
Yeah, very good. So last but not least, and I'm going over our 30 minutes, Stephen, because you're so interesting. But I'm sure we're really grabbing the focused attention of our Avanti listeners here, because it's good stuff. Last but not least, though, your 7th tip is improve your managing skills.
Yeah. So let's face it, most people who are starting their companies, it has changed, but are they under 30, right? And because the reason for that is you don't have a mortgage, you don't typically maybe don't have kids, you can take chances. And people who are under 30 in general have not had to be a manager of other people. And it was by far my worst skill. I was terrible at it, and it was so embarrassing that at one point I actually had to go see a psychologist because I told her that I felt bad how I was treating my people, right? And so I really made a conscious effort to get really better. I hired a coach, and her job was to make me a better manager. And I am not great at it still, but I'm good at it. And I'm a hell of a lot better than I used to be. And so start focusing on becoming a better manager. How do you do that? One, you read about what is a good manager or how to create a management staff. Two, if you have somebody in your company who is maybe the second in command that can manage people, have them do it. Mm-hmm. And then you focus on the entrepreneurial stuff and you let your staff know, I'm not the best at this, but I'm working on it, right? Again, it's just about educating. It's about getting better. It's about getting to know yourself. I'll just throw something a little unusual out there. And I started meditating 2 years ago. And I wish I knew about meditation when I was 25, because what meditation does for you, it makes you think before you speak. And that was my biggest problem. And I would have done much better, because I used to get really angry if something wasn't done, and I would express that. What I'll tell you what the psychologist helped me with. She made me realize that whenever I got angry, I stopped thinking at that point. That the anger was so strong that your brain just shuts off, and I did dumb things.
Yeah.
So, I think managing people is one of the most important things you can do, because let's face it, you have to get performance out of the people who are working for you. And that's a hard transition when you go over 3 million, when you have people now that are doing what you used to do. And now you have to manage them to make sure they're doing what you want. And so that's one of the, again, what I did was when I wrote this down, I just kind of said, what did I learn between the 6th company and the 7th company? What did I feel passionate about the most important 7? And these were the ones that came the most to mind.
Yeah. Stephen, this has been super, super educational, and I love it. I continue to learn, from you, and a lot of the stuff, we've learned together, but it's so good to hear it again. Repetition is the mother of all skills. All our pianos need to be retuned, and you've taken a lot of what I learned and brought it to the next level. And what I love about it is you're just not some teacher and some consultant. I mean, like, you're doing it. You're running a successful company, and you're doing this every day, and you're sharing what has worked and what hasn't worked for you. So,
well, thank you for having me. I mean, I find that the more I talk about this stuff too, the more I do it myself, and I become much more aware of it. So, I always listen to all your podcasts. So,
thank you.
It's an honor for me to be on here. And,
thank you.
So, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, what you just said, and one of the big reasons why I do my podcast is the teacher becomes the best student, right? Because you talking about this, you're learning it again, right? And like you said, reminding yourself of all these principles and saying, you may be saying, hey, I just talked about that, and honestly, I haven't done it in a while, so I'm going to do it again, right?
Yeah, I find that stuff when I'm sitting there, hey, saying, wait a minute, am I, being a hypocrite here? Am I doing what I say I'm doing?
Right.
I honestly know that I'm doing this stuff. Yeah. But there are other things I write about that I'm like, I don't think I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, you're a good man, Stephen. Hey, we got to go. Congratulations on all your success, and I wish you continued massive success in all your endeavors, personally, professionally, etc. Before we go, though, I mean, I'll have this all in the show notes, but people want to reach out to you. What's the best way to do it?
They can. You can always go to our website, financingsolutionsnow.com. You can call me. Always, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have at 973-917-2019, and that's my direct dial.
Yeah.
And my email address is steveh@financingsolutionsnow.com. So again, it's STEVEH at financingsolutionsnow.com.
Excellent. And full disclosure, because you threw your phone number out there, girls, women, he is married, happily married, 25 years. So make sure it's all professional.
They can call. There's nothing wrong with talking.
There we go. You have a whole nother business model coming up, right?
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much. Once again, I totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Avanti listeners, Avanti family, thank you for listening. I always appreciate your time. Love having you as part of the show as well. Make sure to check us out on the web. We're at AvantiEntrepreneur.com. This great interview and all my other ones are there, pre-recorded, the whole works. You can listen again and again and again. Show notes, the whole works at AvantiEntrepreneur.com. You can learn about our upcoming events and everything that we're doing to help you grow your business and your personal life as well. Thanks again. Make it a great day and stay awesome.